Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Greetings, people of Earth and the known universe. This is Golden State Media Concepts television podcast, and I'm your host, Captain Keith. And I've got some good stuff to talk to you about today, television-wise. The Amazon Prime original TV series 10 Star, starring Tim Roth. The new comedy on TBS Network, The Last OG, with Tracy Morgan and Tiffany Haddish. And Django, Amazon Prime television series that is based out of South Africa. And some other goodies for you as well. But before we get to that stuff, let's talk about some new developments that's coming out. So we haven't had a chance to talk about new web series that are web only. There's a new series coming out, and it is what happens when you combine the comedy Girlfriends with blackish and kinky hair. You get the comedic series called Working Out the Kinks, aka WOK. W-O-K. After releasing a pilot episode in 2017, the Working Out the Kinks creators made some adjustments and will release a new revised version of the pilot in episode 2 at the WOK Red Carpet season launch event. The screening and launch party will be held Sunday, May 6th at American Whiskey. And that's, 247 West 30th Street, New York, at 6 p.m. The episodes 1 and 2 will air on May 7th. You can also catch them at WOKseries.com and Live Your Life Productions, with the subsequent episodes airing monthly. So the Kinks cast and crew of the award-winning show will be present, as well as press and other special industry guests. Cast and creatives from several hit series will be in attendance, including Makeup and Breakup and Situationships, as well as guests from WBAI Radio, BET, Black Talent TV series, LY podcast, and some of your favorite current TV shows. So, Kinks, created and produced by J. Nicole Ralph. Working Out the Kinks is a smart, sassy, and down-to-earth show that focuses on the rapidly growing natural hair movement while displaying positive images of the black community. Harlem naturalista Jada, played by Ralph, and her roommates get a new suburban, culturally naive white roommate, and things in their life begin to get quite tangled. Okay. Kinks, the webisodic sitcom, fills a void in media and web content, displaying part of black culture here in a way that is identifiable, entertaining, and educational. WOK, also known as Working Out the Kinks, touches on cultural differences and race relations in a fun, lighthearted way, a much-needed angle in today's society. Sounds pretty interesting. Okay. The release of the pilot episode garnered a great deal of attention nationally and internationally, winning several awards and nominations, including Best Web Series and Best Comedy Series at an array of prestigious film festivals like the Hip Hop Film Festival, the Urban Web Summit, and Harlem International Film Festival, to name a few. Andrea Rachel of the hit shows Power on Stars and The Deuce on HBO says she's excited about it. And Yvonne Orji, star of Insecure on HBO, agrees and says there's a lot of good in there. There's a lot of good in there. Let me say that again. Working Out the Kinks has several celebrated writers and content creators on the team, including Chaz Jackson, writer for the hit web series Awkward Black Girl, produced by Pharrell Williams and Issa Rae. I did not realize that Pharrell co-produced that show. Okay. William Alexander Reynolds, director of hit series Young and Reckless, and black actress, produced by Tatiana Ali, Issa Rae, and Andrea Lewis. Molly Pearson, producer of feature films The Green and Clutter, starring Carol Kane and Cheyenne Jackson, among others, and Ralph, an actress in the hit comedy The Book of Mormon. Okay. General admission and VIP tickets are now available. VIP guests will receive priority seating, priority for taking pictures with cast and industry guests, a gift bag with products, a hotel gift card for $50, and a free business, financial, or artistic consultation with the millionaire mogul. Okay. They're pulling out all the works for this. All this for a new web series. So that's, I love technology. Love the positive side of technology. This is cool. So I'm going to have to start watching more of these web series. All guests will be eligible to win the following prizes, which will be raffled: a choice of cameo appearance on upcoming episodes, or a VIP day on set, business, financial, or artistic wish-fulfilled coaching session with the millionaire consultant. Okay. So once again, folks, that's called Working Out the Kinks. And it's got this woman, this black woman, and there's her hair is down over her shoulders and is full out. And all these different hands of a lady's hands are trying to tease it and comb it. They're all coming from different angles, and she's got this frown on her face, like it's a pretty cool picture, actually. But yeah, I'm going to check that show out. So sounds very interesting. And then getting back into our web world, web TV, web series world, the 6th annual Web Television Awards, called IAWTV event, announced today. That's going to be happening. If you're looking to submit your web television series to be considered for an award, the deadline for the submissions is May 31st. So let's see. This is going to be in Hollywood, California, and it's called the International Academy of Web Television. Yeah, this is the 6th annual awards, and it's a gala celebration honoring the best in streaming series, starting at 8 p.m. on August 24th, 2018. Okay. In the Amundsen Ballroom, that's AHMANSON, at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. The red carpet will start at 6 p.m. And once again, the International Academy of Web Television, or the IAWTV, you can also go to www.iawtv.org, is a division of the Caucus of Producers, Writers, and Directors. And their website is www.caucus.org. They will recognize the finest creators, cast, and crew of web series from all around the world. The IAWTV Awards 2018. So they're going to be back. I mean, this is cool. This is it's going to be their 2nd year at the Skirball Cultural Center. Okay. And this is open to IAWTV members and non-members through the festival submission site, which is Film Freeway, also www.filmfreeway.com. The show itself will recognize the contributions of creative professionals in 29 separate categories that run the gamut of genres and crew positions. The entire ceremony will be streamed live online. Excellent. Former hosts for the show include Emmy winners Kim Estes, Chris Hardwick, and Carrie Preston. Chris Hardwick is the nerdist, and he also does the Talking Dead after The Walking Dead's over every week. He hosts that show. You may have seen him in some other things too. Yeah, but he's been around for a while. And he first got his start working with Jenny McCarthy back in the day off that MTV TV show. I think it was called Singled Out. Yeah, he was a co-host there. Yeah, with her. So I mentioned Chris Hardwick, I mentioned Carrie Preston, and Tony winner and SAG Award winner Roger Bart. The IAWTV will announce its 2018 host soon. Once again, the submissions, the deadline for your web series submissions are May 31st. So everything's going to go down in August. So that's going to be exciting. And I think that's great that there's an award show that's dedicated to web series television. That's great. So that is the future now. People can watch these webisodes on their cell phone or their tablet or on their computer, and even on their smart TVs. So it's great. It's good stuff. So I definitely wanted to share that information with everyone. So And now that I've talked about that, giving you that info on what's going on in the web world of today, it's time to talk about a new comedy with Tracy Morgan and Tiffany Haddish. The Last OG. So TBS has been, it's a network that I've always only been familiar with TBS from either cable or direct TV or cable or satellite television. I've never had TBS as a regular channel on my TV back in the day from when I was a kid. That seemed to be, I don't know if that was a exclusive channel that was contracted with cable and satellite or what, but it's been a pleasant surprise for comedy for me lately with People of Earth, which is a show that's produced by Conan O'Brien. I have to tell you about that show another time, but that's a show about this guy who's a writer who's kind of an atheist who doesn't believe in alien abduction or science fiction stuff, and he gets bored and he decides to go to the small town to talk to these people who have a support group for being alien abductees. And he finds out that he was actually an alien abductee himself. It's pretty cool, very funny and ironic. But The Last OG is the new comedy series on TBS, on the TBS network, and it's great. It's Tracy Morgan stars in it; he's the lead role, and Tiffany Haddish is his co-star. So let me break down to you the scenario of this show, and how it plays out. And I will say that I wish I would have wrote this myself. I really like the premise of this. So The Last OG, that stands for Original Gangster, centers on Trey, an ex-con who is shocked to see just how much the world has changed when he's released from prison for good behavior after a 15-year stint. Returning to his newly gentrified Brooklyn neighborhood, he discovers that his former girlfriend, Shay, has married an affable, successful white man. Oh yeah. So when I saw this first episode, you see that Trey is he's sitting at home in the apartment with Tiffany Haddish's character, and they're just watching American Idol, and So this episode is supposed to be dated back because it's when the very first American Idol came out, and it's down to Kelly Clarkson and Justin Guarini, and Trey is just Justin's gonna win. He's got this. He's got the look. He's got the voice. He's got the hair. And Tiffany Haddish's character is nah, I don't think so. So it was just funny seeing that part of history being relived again and the interpretations of it. So I was cracking up when I saw that. So they're on the couch, just canoodling and snuggling and watching TV. And, Tracy Morgan is he's very comfortable on the couch. And he's just sitting there with his girl. And they're talking about different things, and they're joking and having a good time. And she tells him she's got to tell him something, and before she can tell him, he gets a call from outside across the street. Someone in the neighborhood's calling for him, So he's like, "Well, hold on, I'll be right back. Just TiVo it for me, tape it." And she's like, "Don't go outside. Just stay here." He's like, "I'll be right back." So you see, Trey goes to the neighborhood liquor store to pick up something, and he also sees one of his friends, and it's Malik Yoba, and I don't know what his name is yet, but basically Tracy Morgan's character Trey goes into the liquor store, gets something, comes back out, is talking to Malik Yoba, He's like, I'm all set. I got what I need. And Malik Yoba tells him, don't get cocky. And as he walks away, and then, Trey's character goes to walk around the corner, and he runs into a guy, and he asks him, what's he need? And then the police pull up, and then the guy he's talking to says, hey, freeze, I'm a cop, freeze. And then Trey sees Malik Yoba walking the other way, and everybody's like, wow. So, and Tiffany Haddish, her character is Shay. She's looking outside the window. She sees her boyfriend get, arrested. So, and from that point, it goes to he's in jail for 15 years for drug possession and selling drugs. Now, mind you, Trey could have got out of jail if he would have flipped or told, where he got the drugs from. But, he's an OG. He's like, I'm not a snitch. So he doesn't say anything. So I'll tell you some more about what happens after this break.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Hello. Welcome back. Once again, folks, you're listening to Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Keith. And we're talking about the new TV series, the new hit comedy series, The Last OG, starring Tracy Morgan and Tiffany Haddish. So, yeah. Where did we leave off at? Oh, so as I said before, Tracy goes to jail for 15 years for selling drugs, mind you, he could have gotten out earlier, but he didn't want to, he doesn't snitch. So that's fine. So you find out later that, so the next scene shows Tracy in jail, and he's about to leave. Now, mind you, this TV series is co-produced by Jordan Peele from Key and Peele and Get Out fame, and Tracy Morgan, actually. So that's good to know. So, you see Tracy or Trey getting out of jail, and you find out that he's like, a really great chef. And one of the first scenes is that his bunkmate is asking for a recipe, and Tracy doesn't want to give it to him, but he gives it to him anyway. And it was just funny seeing this guy who's all tatted up and looking all mean and tough, asking for his recipe before he leaves. It was just, the contrast is cool. So yeah. So Trey gets out of jail, and everyone's giving him a clap and a standing ovation. And one of the security guards, one of the COs, is like, "I don't want to see you back here." And he's like, "Trust me, you won't." So, and so you see that Trey basically found himself, as a chef in jail. So he's all excited about getting out of jail and going back home and seeing his girl. He thinks that she's waited for him 15 years. So and he's just happy to be going back home, and he can't wait to see the youth so he can talk to them, so he can tell them how to change their ways and don't make the mistakes that he made that led to him in jail. So he's all amped up and all excited about making a difference in young people's lives, in his Brooklyn neighborhood. So Trey gets back to Brooklyn, and he gets off the bus, and there's a woman with a stroller who yells at him like, "Get out the way!" So he's like, "Oh, sorry." Then he's looking, and he sees these two African American gentlemen standing by this stairwell or this porch, in front of this maybe brownstone, and they got the leather jackets on and their hats, and they look. They look real fly. They look real sharp, like just real hip. So Trey looks at them, and he assumes that they're like selling drugs, And he starts talking to them, and he's like, look, I know where you, because I know who you guys are. He goes, I know where you've been. I've been there. You don't want to live your life like that out here in the streets, selling drugs. You don't want to do that. He goes into the spiel and the speech to them. He's like, he goes, I was in jail for 15 years for that. He goes, you don't want to be like that, homie. You guys can do other things. You can be better people. And as he's saying that, they're looking at him, and then all of a sudden, the one guy says, excuse me, and he starts speaking in what's considered an effeminate tone, and this car pulls up, a taxi, and a woman yells outside of the door, out of the window, are you ready for brunch? And she uses the B word, and it's just kind of funny. And the two guys are like, oh yeah, you know what, girl, we're ready. So basically they allude to, Trey figures out that these two black guys who look so hard and gangster are gay men. And then he looks up and he says, what happened to Brooklyn? And then he sees to his left, two Asian girls in the middle of the street doing a selfie saying, what's up, Brooklyn? So Trey figures out that Brooklyn has changed because all of his old places, stomping grounds, are gone. And he's just like, well, so this is Brooklyn now? It's all gentrified? Because we know what's happened. So he realizes that he's been a man out of time, that basically when he left, his neighborhood totally changed. He just had no idea. So then he goes walking around just trying to figure out what's going on and just get he wants to just see a familiar face and just wants to see if there's anything that he recognizes that's that he can call home still, and basically he goes to a basketball court and he sees his buddy his mural on the wall, and it's one of his street friends, and he figures out that guy died, and there's a mural of him painted next to a car, and Trey's sad about it. And he's talking to the mural, and the next thing you know, he hears someone answering back, and he's like, is that you? And he turns around and goes, no, I'm his little brother. And it's the same, basically it's the same actor, but he's playing his younger, he's playing the younger brother from earlier in the episode. So it was actually a pretty clever way to keep him around. And when Trey sees, this guy, he passes out because he looks just like his friend who's dead. So it just kind of freaks him out. The actor I'm talking about, I just saw his name too. Give me a second. But Bobby. Yeah. Bobby, his name is Alan Maldonado. So Bobby is the younger brother to Trey's best friend who got killed. So when Bobby shows up at the basketball court and recognizes Trey and starts speaking, he looks like the spitting image of Trey's, his best friend. So Trey passes out in the basketball court when he sees him like he saw a ghost. It's pretty funny. So basically, after that happens, he wakes up. Bobby explains to him, hey man, everything's different. Brooklyn's been gentrified. And Trey's just all in shock from the whole thing because, it's like, the only thing that changed about him was that he was able to learn how to be a chef in jail. Otherwise, he's still the same old guy from the neighborhood. So, and he's in for a rude awakening. So after he and Bobby talk, Bobby doesn't really know what happened with Shay. He's just around. So Trey decides to check in to the halfway house. And you'll never guess who his halfway supervisor or manager or boss is, or parole officer, right? Cedric the Entertainer, who plays Menard Mullins. And when Trey walks in to the halfway house, first thing he sees is Menard Mullins on the stage trying to do stand-up. So Menard thinks that he's a funny guy. He thinks he can be a comedian. And he's trying to get everyone to laugh at his jokes. So, and no one's laughing, but when Trey walks in, he just starts ripping on him. And everyone laughs at the jokes that Trey gives. You know, going off on Cedric. Or Menard Mullins. So that was funny. And Menard has a nickname for Trey and all of the other parolees, and it's just not. I'll just say that the last part of the name ends with liquor, and Trey's like, "Look, I never did any of that when I was in jail for 15 years, and I'm not going to do it now." And it was just their whole their chemistry was just really funny. So Menard Mullins, you know, who's played by Cedric the Entertainer, takes Trey to his office and he sits him down. And he's like, "Look, if you're gonna be here, you gotta follow a few rules." He's just like, you know, you have to, you know, be home at a certain time. You gotta keep things clean. And when he says to Trey, you have to keep things clean, you can look at, you know, Trey looks at, but, you know, Menard's office, and it's just a mess. It's just paperwork everywhere. So there's irony in that. And then he tells him, you know, no sex after 4 p.m. You know, it's just different things that just sound kind of off the wall and crazy. And Trey's like, you know, "What's going on, man? What happened to Brooklyn?" He's just like, you know, "I came here, I want to make a difference in the youth." And then Menard starts mimicking and echoing everything that Trey's about to say about his plans for giving back to the community. And Menard is like, "Look, I hear that all the time, man." He just goes, "You need to let that go. You need to just take care of yourself and make sure you get you a job." So then he takes Trey to where his room is, and he's bunking with the you know, with different people. And Menard goes to tell another joke, and it just doesn't land. And then when Trey tells another joke, you know, on top of, but, you know, Menard's joke, everyone laughs. So it's just funny to see that dynamic, and it's going to be interesting to see how their relationship plays out. You know, since that's his parole officer, / halfway house manager. You know, that's going to be interesting, and it's cool because this is not the first time I've seen Cedric the Entertainer play a comedian who's not funny. Especially since, as a comedian, he's very funny. So he did the same thing on Two Broke Girls. He played Garrett Morris's son, long lost son, and he was trying to be a comedian, and nobody laughed at his jokes. So it's just very interesting to see how Cedric likes playing those different types of roles, playing the exact opposite of who he is. It's pretty challenging though, but it works. So basically, eventually, Trey figures out where where Shay is, his girlfriend, Tiffany Haddish. So he goes to a gala that she's having, a fundraiser. Actually, before he does that, he finds out where she's living, and it's a beautiful, brownstone or condo in Brooklyn. And the first thing Trey says, he says, "You know, my girl Shay's moved on up like he goes, my girl Shay has moved on up like the Jeffersons." So, and then he sees her come outside. He goes, "Oh, there she is," and she looks so beautiful. And then he sees her coming down the stairs. He's across the street hiding behind a car. She can't see him. And then there's this man who comes up and gives her something. And she goes, "Oh," he goes, "Who's?" And then it's a white guy. So Trey's like, "Oh, she might work with him or something." And then after he gives her something, and you find out that this is Shay's husband named Josh, I believe. So she kisses him, and then Trey's like, "What the heck?" So he just falls back because he's like, "A white guy?" So, so, you know, once again, in 15 years, a lot can change, and Trey is finding that out the hard way. He's just all kinds of been out of shape. He's like, "What happened?" You know, so he doesn't confront her. He doesn't go over there to see her or nothing. So the next day he figures out that she has this charity event for the homeless. It's a function, a social function. He shows up right as she's giving a speech, and he's got like his yellow velour, like little tracksuit on. Well, everybody else is in a black tie affair. Everyone else is dressed up very nicely. And he's, they got suits and dresses on, and he definitely looks out of place. So as she's giving her speech about wanting to raise funds and end homelessness in New York, he's heckling. He's like, oh, there you go. You tell him, girl, tell him. And, he's saying all this, and she sees him and recognizes him. She keeps smiling, but you can tell she's kind of mad. So she keeps on a good face. And I'll tell you what happens after this break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back. Once again, you're listening to Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Keith. And we're talking about The Last OG with Tracy Morgan and Tiffany Haddish. So basically, she sees him at her function, and she wasn't expecting to see him. She didn't even know that he was out of jail. So after she finishes making her speech and everyone's clapping their hands and applauding her, she sees Trey, and they go talk, and she takes him outside, and she's like, why are you here? And she's like, how are you going to come up on me like this? And he's like, hey, what's going on with you? He goes, I'm glad you're doing well, but hey, what's up with you being married to this white dude? And she's like, he's a good man, and I love him, and a lot has changed. And as she's talking to him, and he goes, how come you never saw me? You never came to see me. He goes, how come you didn't, and she said, well, how come you didn't, tell what, how come you didn't tell people what happened? How come you weren't an informant? And he's like, I ain't no snitch. So she just shook her head, like, she was just really angry with him, and he's just in shock that because her husband comes outside, and he's like, is there a problem there? And she's like, no, there's no problem. Everything's fine. And Trey's like, oh, what you gonna do? Trey was ready to to fight him, but that didn't happen. So as Shay's telling him that, hey, things have changed. You can't just come back into my life anymore. It's been 15 years. She said, I told you not to go, and you did anyway. And Trey couldn't say anything because she was right. So then these two kids come up to her, and the one boy says, Mom, she's trying to get me to eat peanuts. She knows I'm allergic to them. And she's like, stop that and go back inside. And when Trey sees these kids, he's like, can you explain to me how old are those kids? How those two black kids can have him as a father? And she doesn't really say anything, and she just goes back inside. And then, the scene ends, and Trey's like, I'm a father. So he realizes that, wow, I've got kids. I had no idea that I've got twins. So that makes him feel better about his life after jail now, because he comes home and he's just like, this is not my world. What is this? I don't like what I'm seeing. But now I'm knowing, hey, I've got two kids. I'm a father. I've got something to live for. There's still hope for me after all, and I'm still connected to Shay. So that's basically how the episode ends, the first episode. But I'm looking forward to telling all of you more about that show, because I'm going to start, I'll be binging on that show the next few days. But I've been meaning to watch it, and I finally got a chance to, and I like it. It's very funny, very funny. I'm enjoying it. So I like the premise. It's different. The Last OG. So basically it's going to be about Trey just adjusting to the new world that, that that he's not used to. How does he fit in? How's he going to be a good role model for his kids? And can he ever win Shay back? All those things we don't know. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how everything plays out. But I'm enjoying the show. It's a half hour long. It's a good series so far. I'm digging it. So once again, it's called The Last OG, and it's on TBS. It's starring Tracy Morgan and Tiffany Haddish. And is also co-produced by Jordan Peele of Key and Peele fame and of the Get Out fame. So check that out. You'll like it. Now, 10-star. Where do I start? First and foremost, shout out to Amazon Prime for having this great TV series. Really good. And it's nice to see Tim Roth back again. Tim Roth, his claim to fame, a few things: Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Pumpkin and Honey Bunny. So, great actor from Great Britain. He really gets the chance to exercise his chops in this show. It was not what I was expecting. So, in a previous podcast, we talked about Ozark on Netflix and how great that show was with Jason Bateman and how dysfunctional that show is. And it is. And man, 10-star might have them beat. So it's a crime drama set in a mountain town that's overrun by migrant oil workers. British detective and recovering alcoholic Jim Worth moves his family to a small town in the Canadian Rockies. As the new chief of police, he begins to investigate North Stream Oil and their new refinery. Struggling to protect his family and the town from the wave of organized crime that follows, after Jim's family suffers a shocking tragedy, dangerous secrets begin to emerge. So I'm going to be real careful about what I say, but definitely want to talk to you about what that means. So it was really cool watching this series, and when you see the commercial for North Stream Oil, I almost forgot that it was a part of the episode, and I thought it was a real life commercial. It was so realistic, and it just had that, hey, we're a great oil refinery company. You're going to love working with us. We're good for the environment. And when you watch that commercial, you just have an uneasy feeling like, no, this company is going to be trouble. So, of course, before the company this sets up in this small town, they have a town meeting, and Christina Hendricks is their spokesperson, and she's asking everyone in town questions about, well, what do you think of who we are and what we're trying to do? And there are people who are for it and people who are against it. They're like, we don't know if we want that. That could bring crime to our, town. So, and then she asks, the chief of police, Jim Worth, Tim Roth's character, what do you think? And he's like, I don't think it's a good idea. He said, but, I'm here to support whatever the people of this town want. So basically, the next scene later is North Stream Oil is a factor now. They're there in the small town, the Canadian Rocky town. They've set up ship. People are working. Now, the first episode opens up with Jim Worth, his wife, and his son and daughter. They're in their car and they're driving like they're trying to get out of town, like they're trying to get away. Now, they realize they're out of gas, so they turn back around to get gas. Now, Jim's youngest child is his son, Petey. Everyone likes Petey. He's a cute little kid. So what you see is Pete's in his child's chair, and as Jim is getting gas, Pete's telling his wife, his mom, Jim's wife, that I need to use the bathroom, I need to pee. And they're like, you need to hold it. We gotta get out of here. And he's like, no, I need to go. So Jim's wife goes to let him out. And his older daughter is also in the back seat. And Jim has his back turned to the front of the car. And his daughter is just like, Dad, take a look. And Genevieve O'Reilly plays Tim Roth's wife on the show. And her name is Angela. She's Irish and he's English, so it's an interesting mix. So his oldest child, his daughter, is just like, no. Anna, she's like, Dad, take a look. So the next scene you see is a man in a white mask coming up to the front of the car, pointing a gun and shooting it through the windshield. The daughter, Anna, the older child, is sitting next to her little brother, and the next scene you see is blood spattered on her face. Now, mind you, the mom came over to the passenger side to let Petey out so he can go use the bathroom. So at that point, you don't know who got shot. Then it goes back, and the episode goes back in time before that day. And you see just how, Jim Worth, Tim Roth's character interacts with his family. He's very loving, very attentive, very happy. Of course, he's got a teenage daughter who doesn't like being in a small Canadian town. She wants to be back in London with her friends. So, typical teenage angst, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what happens from that point on is that all I'll say is that someone definitely dies within the Worth family, and nothing's ever quite the same. And basically, the Nord Stream oil refinery is run by this guy who's really shady, very unfeeling. He's basically like a sociopath. He at one point had a meeting with Jim Worth at his office, the sheriff's office, or the police chief's office, and he didn't say too much, but while he was talking to the police chief, he put a bug underneath his desk so he could hear their conversations. So mind you, Jim Worth doesn't know about this. So when you see this man who's running the oil refinery do this, you're like, okay, well, was he behind the hit that happened on Jim Worth's family? Why is he bugging the police chief's office? What's going on with that? Louis Gagnon, played by Christopher Heyerdahl. Yeah, he's the one who he's the shady, evil oil executive for Nord Stream Oil. And Christina Hendricks plays, his spokesperson, Elizabeth Bradshaw, who's a divorced mom who's just out making her living as an independent woman, just wanting to work for an oil company who can make a difference. That's what she thinks. Or that's what she wants to believe. So once this death happens in Jim Worth's family, he's got to deal with the aftermath. And you find out that he's a recovering alcoholic. And he's trying really hard to cope because now he's got to be strong for the surviving members of his family. And now he's got to find out, who did this. So once, a family member of his gets murdered, he tells his deputies, shut down the town, shut down the roads, don't let anybody come in or out. Gotta figure out who did this. So that's what he's doing. So they shut down the roads. And of course, Louis Gagnon, Gagnon, not quite sure how to pronounce that name, the head of the oil refinery for North Stream Oil, that location, is not pleased at all. And he's like, well, we got to try to get through that, that roadblock because, we have to make our money. He cares about the money. He doesn't care about the fact that, the police chief just lost somebody that he loved dearly. We'll get into more 10 Star after this break.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back. Once again, you're listening to Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Keith. And we're talking about 10 Star, the new Amazon Prime original TV series with Tim Roth. Excellent show. So basically, what you find out is that, like I said, a family member dies, but another one is in a coma. So I'll give you that much. So that just puts Jim Worth in a really bad way. I mean, he's got to try to hold it all together and preserve his family and keep his family. You find out that there were 3 guys involved in the shooting incident that happened at that gas station. So, and they can't leave town now because he's blocked the roads. And the one guy, it's just, he calls himself Whitey. He's really, genuinely a creepy guy. And it's him and an Irishman and a black Englishman. There's 3 of them there. And the Irishman is like, what did you do? He's like, you never miss a shot. And he's like, you're right, I never miss a shot. So he's like, I'm still going to finish this job. Oh, and there's one other person too involved. So there's 4 guys altogether, but only one person who was the shooter, and that's the character Whitey. So, and he's played by Oliver Cooper Smith. He does a great job. So basically, what happens is that these guys figure, well, we need to lay low, but we can't, make a big stink and try to leave now. They're gonna know that we're not from here. So what can we do? They figure out, oh, well, we'll just work for the refinery. So they wind up, all 3 of them, getting jobs at North Stream Oil, to keep them undercover, basically, lay low, because they know that, the police chief's going to be looking for somebody. He's going to want to avenge, the death of his family member. So what winds up happening later throughout this show, which is really cool, is that you find out that Jim Worth is actually Jack Devney, and that Jack was a British intelligence agent. He was undercover back in Great Britain. And then when Jack drinks, or when Jim Worth drinks, he becomes Jack. And he becomes reckless, dangerous, and very violent. And basically, he might be more dangerous than the criminals. So, and I forgot to mention the opening, when this episode opened up, there was a quote that talked about how there's not too much difference between a police officer and a criminal. It's just about, they have the same types of personality. It's just a career choice and decision of what job you choose. That's a quote in the TV series. I I am not endorsing that. I'm just saying that's the quote. But I thought it was a great way to start a story and a great perspective, a different perspective to pinpoint it from. And I couldn't understand it at first when I saw that quote at the beginning of the episode until later on I started watching the series and watching how Jim Worth slowly turned into Jack Devney. He fell off the wagon, got back into drinking alcohol, became very reckless, but became very violent, and very dangerous, very focused, just cutthroat. It was like a personality shift. And I didn't know that Tim Roth had that kind of range, but I'm not surprised. He is a great actor, and he just reminded me of that when I watched him in this show. Because he's of short stature in this show, but don't let the size fool you. He packs a powerful punch, and you see that throughout the show, throughout the series. One of my favorite scenes is when he pulls up to a bar, to the local bar, and he backs up his car or his truck, and he just backs it up into these motorcycles from this motorcycle gang. And at first, someone was trying to frame the motorcycle gang as the people who killed his family member. But so he backs into their bikes, and they fall over, and he doesn't care. He's got no regard for it at all. He goes in and he just starts drinking at the bar, and he's drinking, and you find out that he's trying to flush someone out. So basically, one of the bikers comes up to him. He's like, "What are you doing? Chief, what's going on?" And he's egging for a fight. And police chief puts his gun out on the counter, and he's just like, "Look," he said, "Right now, you're in the way. I'm trying to catch someone. I'm playing the bait, and you're in my way. Now F off." And he points the gun down below to the biker's groin. So when everyone sees that, they're like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna leave." So they leave, and now Whitey, the guy who shot his family member, he's been kind of stalking him and just being around and just looking around, just watching him, but not saying who he is. And there's so much more to that story too. So, Jim Worth keeps drinking, and as he's drinking, he's becoming more and more of Jack. But, no one in town knows about Jack, at least not yet. So he eventually leaves the bar because, he couldn't draw the person's attention out that day or that night like he wanted to. And as he's leaving the bar, he's on the sidewalk. All the bikers surround him. They're like, "Hey," because "you ain't on duty right now, and you're going to have to pay for what you did to our bikes." So now, mind you, at this point, most guys would be like, "Don't hurt me, please." Might even cry or beg, "Please don't." No, not Jim Worth, a.k.a. Jack Devney, Tim Roth's character. He looks at them. He puts his hands up. He kneels down to the ground. And he puts himself in a fetal position. So basically, he's like, "Go ahead. I deserve it. Beat the crap out of me. I did it, and I'm not going to run from it. So give it your best shot." I have never seen that in television in my life or any series. I've never seen somebody just willfully take a beating because they knew they had it coming, not complain. And they obliged. They all just started beating him up and kicking him. So, he basically goes home, and he's just checking on the house because he's convinced that someone is still after him and his family. He doesn't know, he's still trying to figure everything out. And you find out through some scenes that, like I said before, he was an undercover agent in Great Britain, in London, and he was assigned he was trying to get to one guy. So he chose the guy's sister to do it. The guy's sister was married to a man and had a son, but she was cheating on her husband with Jim Worth. So Jim Worth had been staying with them for a while. He had been living with them. So he's undercover and she doesn't know this. Now, mind you, you also find out later on that in this flashback episode that you get down, later on in the season, that Jim was married to his wife at the time and had his daughter at the time. She knows he's undercover, but she's not sure whether or not he's actually sleeping with this woman. And I'm going to tell you, folks, yeah, he's sleeping with that woman. So it's really surreal to see how all this plays out and the moral fiber and character of Jim Worth. And when he first ties one on, he wakes up on the Indian reservation in a Native American woman's bed, and he can't really remember what happened, but he figures out that he had slept with this woman. He was so drunk that he did that. So he leaves the reservation, but he leaves barefoot and bloodied. And the woman he slept with is upset with him because she's like, you don't remember my name? And she's like, I'm not a whore. And she's like, you said you were going to help me. So it's just, so all this crap is just piling onto him right now. So I get it. You lost somebody in your family, then someone else is in a coma. So, your whole foundation is being shaken right now. So all the things that you were trying to avoid it seems like they've come back to haunt you. And now you have to deal, and you still have to be, the law enforcement for this town of people. And watching his character drink more and more and just get darker and more violent and get more dangerous, it's just really interesting and fascinating. And then you see that a loved one wakes up from their coma and they're not quite the same either. And that person, they've gotten darker as well. So it's as if when the family member died by that bullet, there's innocence that was lost within the family itself, and no one's ever really the same. And then I'm watching this, and you find yourself just wanting to see the bad guys get caught, this Whitey and his friends, and you're trying to figure out, why was it so important for you to try to kill this guy? Whitey alludes to there is a blood oath that must be fulfilled. So there's that. And then Jim's daughter goes back to their home to pick up some things because Jim and her are staying at a hotel. And she comes across a cigarette butt. So when Whitey finds out, he figures out that one of his henchmen was in the house and he left a cigarette butt. And he's furious because that's DNA that can be traced back to us and to you. So Whitey's like, okay, well, I need to, I'm going to try to, make nice with Jim's daughter, see if I can get that cigarette butt from out of her purse. So it gets really bizarre because this killer is, socializing with, Jim's daughter, Anna. And you're just asking yourself, where's this going to go? What's going to happen with this? And there's just lots of twists and turns. You find out also on this TV show that before North Stream Oil came there, there was one lady who was very adamant against him going there, being there and setting up shop. She winds up eventually dead a few days after she protested them coming. So initially, a few days after the town meeting, she winds up dead. And it's, they say it was suicide, but they're suspecting it was really a homicide because she was in North Stream Oil's way. So you got this going on where Jim's got to figure out who's trying to kill him. And then he's got to figure out how to neutralize North Stream Oil because he believes that they had something to do with his friend's death. So it's all these entanglements are going on, and it just gets more and more layered, and it's just really interesting to see how the town police chief winds up becoming more dangerous than actual criminals in that town. That's all I'm going to say. But it starts off kind of slow, but it picks up quickly, and you get engaged. It's an excellent series. I like 10-star. I'm looking forward to season 2. And even the way the season ended was like, I was like, what just happened? But yeah, thanks again for listening to Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast. I'm Captain Keith, and I did not get enough time to talk about Django, but that will be next week's episode. So we'll talk about that. And thanks again. Appreciate all of you, good people of Earth and of the known universe. And I will see you somewhere out in space.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.